I grew up here in State College. My parents moved here when I was 2. My dad took a job at the Nittany Lion Inn as a kitchen manager. And it was a really lovely, middle-class upbringing. We moved houses a couple times. We built the dream house next door when I was 17, I think is when we moved in. And I did a lot of dancing. That was pretty much my life. Girl Scouting, I earned my Gold Award when I was 18. I always knew I didn't want to go to Penn State. All of my friends are local, and I just didn't want to go that big of school, so I went to Bucknell, which is about an hour and a half away, and it's very small. And it was a wonderful experience. I met 3 of my bridesmaids there, my best friend and my sister, Tujal, and then I moved home after college, and I taught dance for 4 or 5 years at the dance studio that I grew up at. I actually love telling the owner of the dance studio that I was there longer than she was because she bought it when I was 10. And she always enjoyed that little snippet of information every time I gave it to her. But and after I moved home, my dad and my mom and I started fostering kittens. And that's something that I was very excited to do further in my life. I always wanted to participate with the animal shelters in town a little bit more often than I had when I was growing up. And I had a really great childhood, a really great adulthood here too, honestly. I was very blessed. I got to travel the world thanks to my grandparents. They took me to France for my 13th birthday, which is crazy.
Maybe.
I had a little bit too much champagne, and I fell out of my chair. It is what it is. In a different moment in that same trip, I had a little bit too much wine, and I stood up to go to the bathroom, and my feet were 10 feet away from my head. And so I decided, that was the first time I noticed I should probably have water in between my wines. But my grandparents were very giving and very, I don't have the right words really, because they gave me opportunities that I never would have had the opportunity to have. I would never have gotten the option to study abroad in Greece for a semester. I would have never had the opportunity to go on an archaeological dig for a month in Bulgaria. I would never have known that I could spend a month at Cambridge University the summer before I went to college. Because of them, I got the chance to spend 2 weeks in Cuba before it had reopened in 2016. So I just led an immensely blessed life, and I also felt very grounded because even though my mom's side of the family came from immense wealth, my dad's side didn't. And my dad's parents, my dad's mother, my grandma, she basically helped raise me until I was 14. And she gave me that kind of stability and nurturing, unconditional love that every child deserves to have. And I didn't get a chance to know the rest of my dad's side of the family that much because they were in Missouri. She was up here with us until I was 14. And I got to see a balance between hardworking people. And not that my grandparents weren't hardworking, because my grandfather earned all his wealth. But he was also immensely lucky. And my dad's side of the family were just blue-collar, hardworking people. And so having both of those perspectives in my life really helped me to appreciate everything that I've been given, appreciate all of the opportunities that I have, and acknowledge my privilege while also not being ashamed of it.
So, grew up in the Philly suburbs. I'm the youngest of 3 children. I have 2 older sisters who always used to pick on me, and we have video evidence of them pushing me off something because my dad was filming me during our family videos and my sisters got jealous. But my parents were very big parts of my life. They insisted that we stayed active, so we were doing year-round sports. So I was doing either soccer, basketball, or baseball, none of which I I guess I kind of enjoyed it, but it's one of those things that you're kind of forced to do and you make the best out of it. And I appreciate that they made me active because I wish I were more active now later in life. Some of the other big people in my life, my Aunt Chachiala, she was the person that always tried to spoil us, and my parents, she said that she was a sucker for us, but my parents didn't like using that term, so she used the term fish cake as our term of endearment for being the person that gives you gifts. And I didn't get to see her too often, but I was happy when we did get to see her. And really, now that I think about it, enjoy more of the quality time more than anything else, because at this point, like, I can't really remember anything that she ever physically gave to me, but I just remember spending a lot of time with her and just really enjoying it. And my mom's mother, so that'd be maternal grandmother, Babci Szymański, she would always watch us whenever my mom had to work because she was working the day shift, and even though she only worked a few days during the week, we still needed help around and very much got spoiled. And I remember in high school, we either had to do art or play in the school band, and because I'm very much not a physical artist, I went the band route, so I played the electric bass and was involved heavily with that. Played in the school pit band for my school and our sister school, Nazareth Academy, where I met basically most of my high school friends that way. Prior to the TV show Entourage, we just called ourselves that because one of the girls are like, oh, here's my entourage that are following me, and that just became our nickname. So then after high school, I came up to State College for going to do my undergrad at Penn State, majored in IST, and that's where I met my best friend, Chris, who I always call Chewy, even though he prefers that I introduce him as Chris now. Spent a lot of time just hanging out in our room, playing video games, and just really chilling. And then after I graduated, I got a job in the area and kind of just never left. So when I started my job locally, I was basically just hanging out with a lot of my coworkers. But at the time, the company was kind of downsizing, and slowly, most of my friends kind of left town, to the point of there weren't that many local people here that were not married. So when I was bored, I'd sometimes just go down to the bars by myself, which is really boring. But then one day I kind of had an old Halloween costume for Waldo and decided, I'll just go dress up as Waldo and see what happens. And just had a whole bunch of fun just hiding in corners of the bar and having people find me. And that's actually how I found out about the State College Young Professionals, which is the social group in the area that is where I met most of my current friends and ultimately led me to Kelly.
So one of my parents' best friends in town for the longest time, the Johnsons, their daughter Aubrey was living with them. She was engaged to marry a man who was French, and she was going to be moving to France to get married 9 months after her parents were moving to Texas. And she had gotten a job here in Boalsburg, and she didn't want to leave just to set up camp for 9 months in Texas. So my mom offered her a place at our house, and she introduced me to the State College Young Professionals. And so I had gone through a breakup, and I was looking to make new friends, and she took me along to these social gatherings, and around Thanksgiving time, she asked if it would be possible if she could host a Friendsgiving at our house with a couple of other people from that group. And I wasn't technically a host, but it was my house, so I felt like I was a host. And that was the first time that Mike came out to an event that year.
Yes, I was working through the final year of my master's program, and actually the last semester, and it was a whole bunch of group work, and I basically just went from working to doing schoolwork and didn't really have much of a social life for the time that you joined. Right.
And so I hadn't met him yet. And he was one of the first people to arrive, and he brought ice cream, which then we promptly forgot to eat. But there were probably about 30 people at this Friendsgiving, and I had only met maybe a third, 2/3 of them maybe. But Mike was one of the ones I hadn't met, and so I actually sat next to him at dinner. And I remember telling my mom at the end of the night, you know, here are the people that I met that I really enjoyed, and I hope I get a chance to see them again, and Mike was one of them.
I made sure to introduce her to Kelly, and they had like a 40-minute chat in the kitchen, which apparently Kelly does not remember happening.
Not a second of it. No, I don't remember a second of it.
So like a week later, I'm just calling my sister, see how she's doing, and she's like, hey, this is gonna sound really weird, but I just have this like weird thing where like when I see two people together, I just know that they'd make a great couple. And she's like, I really see that with you and Kelly. It's like, well, I don't know, like I just kind of met her, but I can kind of really see that. She's like such a really nice person and friendly. It's like, maybe I should kind of look at it.
I kind of had to, when I first showed up to the New Year's party, I had to kind of let people know. I was like, hey guys, this is gonna be my last party. I'm moving to DC in 2 weeks. I took a job, but you know, my family lives here, so I'll be back. I'll see you guys again, but probably not for a while.
But I remember after that, we were sitting on the dock. The sun was bright. We were just looking out on the ocean. You were just like cuddled onto my shoulder. I took a few selfies together and just thinking like, this is perfect. I think this is love. And I just was thinking to myself like, I can't say anything yet because like this is way too soon,
yeah,
right?
It's only a month and a half after we'd started seeing each other. I hadn't yet put a label on it yet. I did later that day. we went to brunch, and I checked us in, and
for Yelp.
For Yelp, and to make it easier on myself, I said my boyfriend had this, but my Yelp is apparently attached to my Facebook. So my Facebook all of a sudden had a post that my boyfriend liked this. And I was like, well, I guess it's Facebook official now. I had a really great group of coworkers down in DC, and we chatted a lot while we were working. And I kept referring to him as this guy that I'm seeing for like the first like month. And then when I said my boyfriend after like that next week, one of them was like, ooh, you upgraded him. Oh, I see. I was like, well, it's about time. I kept him in the dark for too long, honestly. But I had the exact same feeling when we were at Mount Vernon, though, walking around, looking at, holding his hand and reading all of the historical signs and just being there in the moment. I remember thinking to myself, this is what it's supposed to feel like. This is what a real positive relationship with somebody is supposed to feel like, and I love it. The person that I was with was also enjoying themselves and happy to be with me. And that was a huge moment for, you know, me as a person who was growing into this relationship, because it was new for me to experience things where the person I was with was enjoying it just as much as I was. And that's always how it's been with Mike. He's always just because he's with me, he's enjoying whatever it is that we're doing. And I love that.
So one of my favorite photos from that trip, one of Kelly's favorite animals is the fennec fox. And there's one that just like cuddled in a corner, and Kelly's going like,
yeah.
And it's my favorite photo from that trip. So it just so happened that the day of my proposal was exactly 1 year to the day that we bought the house together. Mm-hmm. So prior to this actually happening, I asked your mom for your hand in marriage, and she sat me down and asked me a bunch of questions. And then she was like, okay, so who knows about this? Because she already got invited to the party but didn't know that was going to be a proposal. So she talked to Kelly's brother Charlie. It's like, hey, you should definitely be here because Mike's going to propose to Kelly and you should be here for that.
He had already said he wasn't coming. And so I got a call from him. Hey, Kel, my plans fell through. You think I can still come up to your Halloween party? And I was just so excited he wanted to come because he was in Harrisburg at the time. We didn't get a chance to see them that often. He was like, Anna can't come. She can't get off work, but I can come. And I was just like, yeah, you can still come. Should have been hint number one. My brother changed his plans.
Oh. That's a lot more than 3 paces. You get the pose. Okay, take your position. And go.
Expelliarmus!
Matrimonious!
again? Okay. Want to put it on me, sir? I think so. Yes. This is last, right? I don't believe this. Oh yeah, that was the big surprise for me. Was on the inside of my engagement ring is a little engraving of a cardinal, and my father passed away in 2015, and he was a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan. And right after his passing, in the next like week or two after, we saw cardinals everywhere. And I know that's a very common, people see cardinals a lot right after a loved one has died, but it meant something extra special to my family because we knew he was a Cardinals fan of the baseball team. And so to remember my dad, Mike asked Kelly to put a little engraving if he could, and Kelly said, of course I can do anything, to put a little engraving of the cardinal inside my band. And he showed it to me that night. And at first I didn't see it. Like I was upside down, so it just looked like this blob. And I was just like, oh. He's like, do you see what that is? And I was like, yeah, it's a thing. Thanks, Mike. I love it. And he was just like, it's a cardinal. And I was like, what? I don't see the cardinal. And so I flipped around, and then I saw the cardinal. And then I immediately started to bawl because I'm an emotional person. And
your mom also cried when I suggested that.
Turns out later we found out that Kelly had to recast the ring twice because when it was first cast, the person who went to go put the gemstones in thought that engraving was a smudge or something, like an imperfection. And so he melted it down and cast it again. And then when Kelly went to go look at it, he was like, wait a minute, what happened to the cardinal engraving? And the guy was like, oh, I thought that was a mistake, so I recast it. And he's like, well, you got to recast it again with the engraving this time, man. So it got cast 3 times. But we only found out about that about 8 months ago.
So it was also when we were doing our after wedding photos on the mall, and someone's like, oh, there's a cardinal in the tree. It was just like a really nice thing that your dad was there.
It was.
And then we got to take the photo in front of his tree, which is the only thing that I really wanted for photos after the wedding.
I know. And now we have one to base all the future photos off of as well.
Yep.
My grandparents, my mom's parents, whenever we would go to visit them, the second we would come inside the house, my mom would go, hoo-hoo, like a little call. And my grandmother or my grandfather would answer back, hoo-hoo. And it became like this little call and response that they would do every time we came to visit them. And still did it here even when my grandmother moved up here. And so it just kind of became a thing that I knew people did. Called out to each other in their homes, but not like the traditional, honey, I'm home kind of situation. And so we didn't do this on purpose, but when we moved in together, and Mike would make it home before I would usually, and he would hear the garage door open, and so he would run downstairs to where the garage door is, and he would open the garage door, and we have a storm door on the inside too. It's glass, and so he would pretend to be a dog, and open the door and get on his knees and go. Just like that. Oh gosh, so cute. And then I would open the door and he'd bark, 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 bark. And I'd be like, and I would treat him like the dog that he was pretending to be, and be like,
pet my belly.
I would give you little head scratches, and I would tell you were such a good boy. Were you happy to see me? And so and so that's how our greeting would happen most often, just the two of us. And if he wasn't at the door, I just kind of started bark, bark. Whenever, just to let him know I was home if he hadn't realized I was home. Sometimes he had his headphones on or whatever. And that became more common when we went into lockdown after I went back to work in August. He would be home with his headphones on at work. And if I came home, I would have to bark to him. And then we just kind of started calling to each other, even just bark whenever I was just trying to get his attention. And we don't do it in public a lot, but when we have, I've definitely gotten some looks from people because he usually does bark back at me.
But we'll be in a crowded room, I'll hear bark, like, where is she? Oh, there you are.
It's an excellent call and response. And it's very us at the same time. He introduced me to the world of Pokemon and Marvel, and I introduced him to the world of Harry Potter and kittens.
Oh, also another thing it just reminded me of. So I think it was our 4th trip, or me going down, we're at the Air and Space Annex in Dulles. And we spent like most of the day just like kind of going through, looking at all the planes and just having a great time. And then 2 o'clock hit and it was Pokemon Community Day. So I was like, Kelly, there's a lot of Charmanders. Do you want to like just go walk around and try to catch all of them? So we literally spent the next 3 hours just walking around the Air and Space Museum Annex, going in and out, around, just do like a little lap. And
The
there's
security
like,
people were like, who are these people who
but
keep
there was
going in and
like
out?
40 other people also doing it. So we weren't the only people doing it.
And your parents were just lovely that whole evening, and it was so nice to get to them. And we got to see a little bit into your dynamic with your parents, which was really interesting, because I hadn't gotten the opportunity to really understand where you came from, and you are just the perfect mixture of your parents. You have this kind of methodical, goal-oriented, list-making kind of mind that your dad has, while also having this embracing and kind and thoughtful mind that your mother has. And it's just such a wonderful combination that I got to experience for the first time.
So the one thing that I always tell Kelly is that my favorite thing about her personality is her empathy, where she just cares about everyone, and to the point of she'll cry over people that don't even exist because of the bad things that are happening to these fictional people, that she just cares so much about everyone, even the people that aren't real. And it's a very nice thing, and I always like being there for her whenever she's happy. I love to be there to support her in that. Whenever she's sad, I always want to be there to comfort her. I just want to give her hugs all the time and find excuses to do that. But there actually is you mentioned something else, that when my friends Lauren and Philip got married, at the end of the night when Drew was going to pick us up, at the very end she was like, both Lauren and Allie came up to Kelly. It's like, hey, we have something to tell you. So I came over, I was like, no, Mike, no, you go away. You're not allowed to hear this.
Shoot,
like,
shoot.
Then I just did a sad walk, like,
Yeah, you were so sad.
So do you want to share?
It was so sweet of them, because I thought I was in trouble. This was the first time that I'd gotten the chance to really know them at all. Lauren had even invited me to the rehearsal dinner because he was in the wedding. And so I thought, oh my gosh, Mike's best friends are like pulling me aside. What did I do? Like, are they gonna tell me, if you hurt him, we're gonna come after you? And then they sent him away, and they just looked at me and they were like, I just want to let you know that we have never seen Mike this happy, and I think that you guys are so good together, and we are so happy he found you, and we are just thrilled to the moon that you are the person that you are, because he deserves the best, because he's the best. And your friends love you so much as my friends love me, and we just have good people in our lives.
Yeah.
And we deserve to be happy.
You're also just really good about finding good people.
We are good about finding good people. Nice.
Unscheduled kiss.
Always.
But you know what else?
No.
Tickles.
No tickles. No tickles.
Tickles, tickles.
No tickles. No.
It's been a while since I
No
kissed you on your
tickles.
teeth because you're smiling so much.
You silly boy.